The Korean Mafia boss threw his wife out 6 years ago. He thought he would never see her again. But when he walked into a luxury restaurant one sunny afternoon, his entire world stopped. There she was, the woman he had abandoned, working as a waitress, alive, beautiful, and staring directly at him. But that wasn't the worst part. 1 minute later, a little girl ran toward her and shouted, "Mommy!" The Mafia boss froze, because the child's face looked exactly like his. What he discovered next would destroy secrets that had been buried for 6 years. That morning, the sun shone brightly over the busy streets of Seoul. Luxury cars moved through the city while powerful businessmen hurried toward towering glass buildings. At the center of the city stood the headquarters of the Koyama Group. Inside the top-floor office, the most feared man in Seoul stared out the window. Han Woo-jin, the Korean Mafia boss. The billionaire everyone feared. The man whose name could make powerful politicians nervous. His black suit was flawless. His expression was cold. For years, he had ruled both legal businesses and the underground world. But despite all his power, something had always felt missing. Woo-jin looked away from the window. His assistant entered. "Chairman Han, your grandmother is waiting." Woo-jin nodded. A few minutes later, he entered a private dining room. His grandmother, Madame Han, sat elegantly at the table. Beside her sat Woo-jin's younger sister, Han Seo-yeon. His best friend and right-hand man, Kang Min-ho, stood nearby. "You're late," Madame Han said. Woo-jin smirked. "Only by 3 minutes." The old woman sighed. "You work too much." Min-ho laughed. "Chairman Han doesn't know how to rest." Seo-yeon nodded. "Grandmother is right." Woo-jin ignored them. Instead, he checked his watch. He had an important meeting scheduled at a luxury restaurant later that afternoon. A meeting that would unknowingly change his life forever. Meanwhile, across the city, at Golden Orchid Restaurant, a luxury restaurant overlooking the Han River, a woman adjusted her waitress uniform. Amara, 28 years old, beautiful, strong, independent. The woman who had once been married to Han Woo-jin. The woman he had thrown away years ago. Nobody inside the restaurant knew her past. To them, she was simply a hardworking waitress. A woman trying to build a better life. Her best friend, Maya Kim, approached her. "You barely slept again." Amara smiled. "I'm fine." "You're lying." "I'm fine." Maya rolled her eyes. "You always say that." Amara laughed softly. Because there was one thing Maya didn't know. The reason she worked so hard. The reason she never dated anyone. The reason she carried pain behind every smile. Her daughter. At school, several blocks away, a small private school buzzed with activity. Children laughed across the playground. Among them was a little girl with bright eyes and curly hair. Hannah, 6 years old, Amara's daughter, the secret daughter nobody knew existed. Her teacher, Mrs. Park, smiled as Hannah showed her latest drawing. "Very beautiful." Hannah grinned proudly. "It's for Mommy." Mrs. Park smiled. "She'll love it." Hannah nodded excitedly. She always drew pictures for her mother, because Amara was her entire world. That afternoon, the restaurant became busier. Luxury cars arrived one after another. Wealthy guests filled the dining area. Amara carried trays between tables. Everything felt normal, peaceful, ordinary. Then suddenly, the restaurant manager hurried toward the staff. Everyone immediately straightened. "Important VIP guests are arriving." The workers exchanged nervous looks. The manager lowered his voice. "Everyone be careful." Amara continued arranging glasses. She paid little attention. VIP guests came every day. Nothing unusual. At least, that's what she thought. Outside, a convoy of black luxury vehicles stopped. Restaurant employees immediately rushed to the entrance. Security guards stepped out first. Then another. Then another. The atmosphere instantly changed. Guests began whispering. Everyone knew someone important had arrived. Inside the first vehicle, Han Woo-jin adjusted his watch. Min-ho sat beside him. "You sure you want to attend this meeting yourself?" Woo-jin nodded. "Some deals require personal attention." The vehicle door opened. Woo-jin stepped out. The sunlight reflected against his expensive suit. People immediately lowered their eyes. Fear, respect, power. He was used to it. Without another word, he began walking toward the restaurant entrance. Inside, Amara continued organizing a table. She never looked toward the door. Not once. She had no idea who had just arrived. Meanwhile, Wu Jin entered the restaurant. His security team followed behind him. His eyes casually scanned the room. One table, table, another. Then, he stopped walking. Completely. His heartbeat suddenly froze. Because near the window, a woman stood holding a tray. A woman he hadn't seen in 6 years. A woman he believed had disappeared forever. Amara. Wu Jin stared. His face lost all color. For the first time in years, the feared Mafia boss looked shocked. Impossible. His mind refused to believe it. But she was there. Alive. Standing only a few meters away. Wu Jin couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Thousands of memories exploded inside his mind. Their marriage. Their arguments. The day he sent her away. The last time he saw her. 6 years of regret crashed into him at once. Minho noticed immediately. Chairman. No response. Wu Jin simply stared. Meanwhile, Amara finally sensed someone watching her. Slowly, she looked up. Her eyes met his. The tray nearly slipped from her hands. No, it couldn't be. Not him. Not here. Not now. The restaurant suddenly felt silent. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Years of pain stood between them. Then, a small voice suddenly echoed from behind. Mommy. Amara's eyes widened. Wu Jin turned toward the voice. A little girl came running through the restaurant entrance after a school event nearby. She ran directly toward Amara. Without hesitation. Without fear. Without stopping. And before anyone could react, the little girl wrapped her arms around Amara's waist. Mommy. Wu Jin froze. His eyes slowly dropped to the child. Then back to Amara. Then back to the child. The girl looked around 6 years old. 6 years. Exactly 6 years. A terrifying realization began forming inside his mind. And when the little girl looked up, Wu Jin saw something that made his blood run cold. Those eyes. They looked exactly like his. What happens when Han Wu Jin realizes the little girl may be his daughter? And why has Amara hidden the truth for 6 years? That afternoon, the luxury restaurant fell silent. Han Wu Jin stood frozen. The little girl held Amara tightly. Mommy, I got a gold star today. Hannah smiled proudly. Amara forced a smile. That's wonderful, sweetheart. But inside, her heart was racing. Because standing only a few feet away was the man she had spent 6 years trying to forget. Han Wu Jin, the father of her child. And from the look in his eyes, he was already doing the math. 6 years. The child's age. The timing. Everything. Wu Jin stared at Hannah. Then at Amara. Then back at Hannah again. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same eyes. The same expression. The same stubborn look he saw in the mirror every morning. A terrible suspicion grew inside him. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, cold, dangerously calm. Amara. The sound of her name made her stomach tighten. 6 years. And hearing him say it still hurt. She slowly looked at him. Neither smiled. Neither moved. The years between them felt like a wall. Then Wu Jin asked the question. Who is she? Amara immediately knew what he meant. Her grip tightened around Hannah's shoulder. She's my daughter. The answer only made his suspicion stronger. His jaw tightened. How old is she? The restaurant staff exchanged nervous looks. Even Maya sensed something serious was happening. Amara remained silent. Wu Jin repeated himself. How old? 6. The answer hit him like a truck. Minho's eyes widened. Madame Han's words from years ago suddenly echoed inside Wu Jin's mind. If you lose that woman, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. For the first time in years, fear entered his heart. Meanwhile, Hannah looked curiously between them. Children noticed things adults missed. The tension, the emotions, the pain. She tugged Amara's sleeve. Mommy. Amara looked down. Yes. Who is he? The question made everyone freeze. Wu Jin stared at the little girl. For some reason, he wanted to hear the answer. Amara forced another smile. Just a customer. Wu Jin's eyes darkened. Just a customer. After everything, that was what he had become. 10 minutes later, Wu Jin sat inside a private VIP room. But he wasn't listening to the business meeting anymore. His investors continued talking. Numbers. Contracts. Partnerships. He heard none of it. His mind remained fixed on one thing. The little girl. Finally, he stood up. The executives immediately stopped talking. Chairman, I'm leaving. The room fell silent. Nobody questioned him. Nobody dared. Wu Jin walked out. Minho quickly followed. As soon as they entered the hallway, Minho spoke. You think she's yours? It wasn't a question. Wu Jin stopped walking. His expression remained unreadable, but his silence answered everything. The next morning, bright sunlight filled Seoul. At Hannah's private school, children played happily during recess. Meanwhile, a black luxury vehicle stopped across the street. Inside sat Han Woo-jin. Minho stood beside the car. Are you seriously spying on a 6-year-old? Woo-jin ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on the playground. Then he saw her. Hannah, running, laughing, playing with friends. Something strange happened. For years, Woo-jin had built an empire. Millions of dollars. Power. Fear. Respect. Yet watching one little girl laugh somehow felt more important than all of it. He couldn't explain why, and that scared him. Later that day, Maya walked beside her. You know him, don't you? Amara sighed. There was no point lying anymore. Yes. Maya waited. Amara continued walking. He was my husband. Maya stopped. What? Several pedestrians turned to look. Amara quickly pulled Maya aside. Keep your voice down. Maya stared at her in disbelief. Your husband? Amara nodded. Ex-husband. Maya's mouth fell open. Suddenly, years of unanswered questions finally made sense. Why Amara never dated. Why she always looked sad when people mentioned family. Why she worked nonstop. Maya looked toward Hannah walking ahead. Then back at Amara. Oh my God. Amara immediately knew what her friend was thinking. Neither spoke. Because the truth was obvious. The next morning, the sun shone brightly over Seoul. Inside Koyama Group headquarters, executives nervously presented reports worth millions of dollars. But Han Woo-jin wasn't paying attention. His mind remained fixed on one person. Hannah, the little girl from the restaurant. The little girl who looked exactly like him. Chairman Han. An executive called his name. Woo-jin blinked. The room fell silent. Everyone immediately noticed his distraction. Without warning, he stood up. We'll continue later. The executives froze. Nobody dared question him. A few minutes later, a black luxury car stopped near Hannah's school. Minho sat beside him. You came again. Woo-jin ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on the school entrance. Children laughed across the playground. Teachers supervised activities. Everything seemed normal. Then he saw her. Hannah. She sat beneath a tree drawing pictures while talking to her friends. For some reason, Woo-jin couldn't look away. What are you hoping to find? Minho asked. Woo-jin remained silent. Because he didn't know. Every time he looked at Hannah, he felt something strange. Something powerful. Something he had never experienced before. Meanwhile, at Golden Orchid Restaurant, Amara tried focusing on work. But her thoughts kept returning to yesterday. The way Woo-jin stared at Hannah. The questions in his eyes. The suspicion. The realization. Maya approached carrying menus. You barely slept. I'm fine. You're not. Amara sighed. Maya lowered her voice. Do you think he knows? The question made Amara freeze. Because deep down, she feared the answer. Across the city, a white luxury car pulled into Koyama headquarters. Yoon Seo-ah stepped out. Beautiful. Elegant. Dangerous. The woman everyone expected Woo-jin to marry. Employees immediately bowed. Seo-ah smiled politely. But inside, she was annoyed. For 2 days, Woo-jin had been acting differently. And she wanted answers. Back at the school, the final bell rang. Children rushed outside. Hannah walked through the gates carrying her backpack. Then suddenly, she stopped. Across the street sat the same black car. The same man. Watching. Again. Hannah tilted her head. Curious. Their eyes met. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Hannah smiled. And waved. Inside the vehicle, Woo-jin froze. Minho almost laughed. Chairman. Slowly, Woo-jin lifted his hand. And waved back. Hannah giggled. Then continued walking. But she looked back twice. Something about him felt familiar. She couldn't explain why. That evening, inside the Han family mansion, Madame Han enjoyed tea with Seo-yeon. The old woman immediately noticed something unusual when Woo-jin arrived. He looked distracted, thoughtful, restless, very unlike himself. What's bothering you? Madame Han asked. Nothing. The old woman smiled. You were always a terrible liar. Seo-yeon laughed. Woo-jin sighed, but said nothing. Because he wasn't ready to talk about Amara. Or Hannah. Not yet. Elsewhere, Seo-ah sat inside her apartment scrolling through messages. Then her phone rang. One of her contacts inside Koyama Group. She answered immediately. What is it? The voice hesitated. then spoke. Miss you. What? Chairman Han met someone. COA frowned. Who? The answer made her face turn pale. Amara. Silence. Complete silence. For years, COA believed Amara had disappeared forever. Yet now, she was back, and Wu Jin had seen her. At the same time, Amara walked home with Hannah. The warm afternoon sunlight covered the streets. Everything seemed peaceful, until Hannah suddenly spoke. Mommy. Yes. The man from the restaurant. Amara's heart tightened. What about him? Hannah thought for a moment, then smiled. He looked sad. Amara froze, because that wasn't what she expected. Children usually notice simple things. But Hannah had noticed something deeper. Something Amara herself tried to ignore. That night, after dinner, Hannah sat on her bed coloring pictures. Amara folded laundry nearby. Then Hannah held up a drawing. Look. Amara smiled. What is it? Hannah pointed proudly. A small family. A mother. A little girl. And a tall man. Amara's smile disappeared. Who's that? Hannah looked confused. I don't know. Then why did you draw him? The little girl shrugged. Then answered innocently. Because every family should have one. Amara's heart shattered. She quickly looked away before Hannah could see the tears forming in her eyes. Because for 6 years, she had tried to give Hannah everything. Everything except the one thing she couldn't provide. A father. As the night grew quiet, Hannah climbed into bed. Before falling asleep, she looked at Amara. Mommy. Yes, the man from the restaurant. Amara froze again. What about him? Hannah smiled softly, then asked the question Amara feared most. Why does he look at me like he already knows me? The next morning, Seoul woke up like any other day. Traffic filled the streets. Skyscrapers reflected the morning sun. But inside Han Woojin's world, nothing felt normal anymore. At Kuyama Group headquarters, Woojin stood in front of the glass window again. But this time, he wasn't thinking about business. He was thinking about her, Amara, and the little girl, Hannah. Minho entered quietly. Chairman, you didn't sleep again. Woojin didn't turn. I don't need sleep. You need answers more than sleep. That made Woojin pause. Slowly, he turned. Then give them to me. Minho hesitated, because he knew what was coming next would change everything. Meanwhile, at Golden Orchid Restaurant, Amara worked like usual, carrying trays, smiling at customers, acting normal. But Maya noticed the truth immediately. You're shaking. Amara tightened her grip on the tray. I'm fine. No, you're not. Maya leaned closer. He's getting closer, isn't he? Amara didn't answer, because silence was enough. Across the city, at Hannah's school, the playground was bright and full of life. But Hannah wasn't playing today. She sat quietly under a tree, drawing again. The same man. The tall man. Woojin. Her teacher walked over. That's the same man again. Hannah nodded. I think he's lonely. The teacher smiled softly. Why do you think that? Hannah thought carefully, then answered. Because he looks like he lost something important. At that exact moment, a black car stopped outside the school again. Woojin stepped out, this time alone. Minho stayed in the car. Chairman, don't go too close. Woojin ignored him. He walked slowly toward the school gate. Daylight made everything clearer, including fear. Inside the school office, Amara suddenly got a message. Unknown number. Only one line. He is at the school. Her hands went cold. Maya read it over her shoulder. Is that him? Amara grabbed her bag immediately. We're leaving. Now. Now. Outside, Hannah came running toward the gate. Mommy. Amara reached her instantly. Stay close to me. Hannah looked confused. What's wrong? Amara didn't answer. Because she saw him. Woojin, standing across the street, watching them. Their eyes met again. But this time, something was different. Woojin took one step forward, then another. Amara instinctively stepped back. Maya whispered, if he comes closer, people will notice. Amara didn't care about people. She only cared about Hannah. Woojin stopped a few meters away. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then he finally said, Amara. Her name hit the air like a blade. 6 years of silence shattered instantly. Hannah looked up. Mommy, do you know him? That question froze everything. Amara knelt quickly. Go stand behind Maya. Hannah didn't move. She kept looking at Woojin. Curious. Not afraid. Just curious. Woojin's eyes softened when he saw her again. Closer now. Real now. Hannah tilted her head, then asked innocently, why do you keep looking at me? The question stunned him. Even Minho, standing far behind, went silent. Woojin didn't answer immediately, because for the first time in years, he didn't know how. Finally, he said quietly, because you remind me of someone. Hannah smiled. Who? Wu Jin looked at Amara, then back at Hannah, and answered, someone I lost. Amara's hands trembled. Maya noticed immediately. You need to leave. Amara nodded. But Wu Jin stepped forward again, this time faster. Amara, wait. But she turned away instantly. Don't follow me. Her voice was sharp. Final. She grabbed Hannah's hand tightly and walked away. Maya followed quickly. Hannah looked back once. Just once. Wu Jin stood still in the middle of the street, watching, silent, helpless. For the first time, the Mafia boss didn't chase. He just stood there, because something inside him had already confirmed the truth. That night, inside the mansion, Wu Jin sat alone again. Minho entered slowly. Chairman, we confirmed something. Wu Jin didn't look up. What? Minho placed a file on the table. Her daughter is officially registered as 6 years old. Silence. Heavy silence. Then Wu Jin finally asked, does she have a father listed? Minho hesitated, then answered, no. That word changed everything. Wu Jin slowly stood up, walked to the window, and whispered, then I was erased. Or I never existed to begin with. Outside the mansion, a woman stood watching from a distance. Sioa. She smiled softly, because now, she was certain, Amara was back, and the secret she buried 6 years ago was about to explode. 3 days later, Seoul had moved on like nothing happened. But inside Han Wu Jin's world, nothing was normal anymore. Day 1, Wu Jin did not go to work. For the first time in years, the Kiyama group meetings continued without him. Minho tried calling twice. No answer. The entire mansion felt silent. But Wu Jin was not resting. He was thinking about the girl, Hannah, and the woman who had lied to him for 6 years, Amara. That same day, Amara avoided going outside. She stayed inside the apartment with Hannah. Maya noticed immediately. You're hiding again. Amara didn't respond. Because Maya was right. She was hiding from a man who finally came back from the past she buried. That night, Hannah drew another picture. This time, it was not just her and her mother. There was a third figure, a tall man standing far away. Amara saw it and froze. Why did you draw him again? Hannah smiled. Because he keeps coming closer in my dreams. Amara dropped the pencil. For the first time in years, fear returned. Day 2, Wu Jin returned to the school. But he didn't approach. He just watched. From a distance. Like someone afraid of disturbing something fragile. Minho stood beside him. You're stalking a child now? Wu Jin didn't answer. His eyes stayed on Hannah. She's not just a child. Minho frowned. What does that mean? Wu Jin finally spoke. She feels familiar. At the same time, Sioa arrived at Kiyama headquarters. Elegant, confident, smiling as always. But inside, she was tense. Because rumors had started spreading. Han Wu Jin had stopped focusing on business. And a woman named Amara had returned. Sioa entered a private room. A senior executive spoke quietly. He met her again. Sioa's smile faded slightly. Where? The restaurant and the school. Silence. Then Sioa slowly sat down. So she's really back. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were not. Day 3, that morning, Amara finally decided to leave the apartment. Maya followed her immediately. You can't keep hiding forever. Amara replied softly. I'm not hiding. She paused. I'm surviving. At Hannah's school, the children played as usual, but Hannah kept looking toward the gate, waiting. She didn't know what for, but she felt something coming closer. Across the street, Wu Jin stood this time closer than before. Not hidden, not far, just there, watching, waiting. That night, for the first time in years, Han Wu Jin did not sit like a king. He sat like a man who had lost everything. The lights of the mansion were dim. The world outside continued moving. But inside him, something had already collapsed. He stood in front of the mirror. The same man feared by Seoul's underground world. The same man who controlled businesses, gangs, and politicians. But tonight, none of that mattered. Because power cannot answer one question. Is she my daughter? Wu Jin clenched his fist. Slowly, he opened it again. His hand was shaking. He hated that. He never shook. Never. Until now. Minho entered the room carefully. Chairman. Wu Jin didn't look at him. Prepare the car. Minho paused. To where? A long silence. Then Wu Jin answered. Amara. Meanwhile, at Amara's apartment, the room was quiet. Hannah was asleep. Maya sat nearby, watching Amara nervously. You're not going to meet him, are you? Amara didn't answer immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on the window, because she already knew. He was coming. Maya lowered her voice. If you tell him the truth, everything changes. Amara whispered. It already changed the moment he came back. Outside, a convoy of black cars stopped silently. No sirens. No announcement. Just silence. Wu Jin stepped out alone. No guards. No noise. Only him. He stood in front of the building. For a moment, he hesitated. This was not business. Not revenge. Not power. This was fear. He walked inside. Slow steps. Heavy breathing. Each step closer to her door felt like punishment. Inside the apartment, Amara heard it. Footsteps. Maya stood immediately. He's here. Amara closed her eyes. She did not move. She did not run. Because there was nowhere left to run. Knock. Once. Silence. Knock again. Wu Jin's voice came from outside. Low. Broken. Amara. No title. No authority. Just her name. Silence inside. Maya whispered. Don't open it. But Amara already stood up. She walked toward the door slowly, each step heavier than the last. Outside, Wu Jin leaned closer to the door. His forehead almost touched it. His voice cracked. I don't want power anymore. A pause. I don't want revenge. Another pause. I just want the truth. Amara stopped at the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. Wu Jin continued. If she is mine. His voice broke completely. I want to know why you took her away from me. That sentence hit Amara like a storm. Her eyes trembled. Behind her, Maya whispered, Amara. But Amara raised her hand. Silence her. Inside the hallway, Wu Jin slowly lowered his head. For the first time, the Mafia boss bowed. Not to an enemy, not to fear, but to regret. I am not here as your enemy, he said softly. I am here as a man who lost 6 years without knowing why. Amara's hand touched the door handle, but she did not open it. Yet, Wu Jin whispered one final sentence. If you don't open this door, a pause. I will still wait here. Forever. Silence. The city outside kept moving. But inside this moment, everything stopped. Amara closed her eyes. Then slowly, she turned the handle. The lock clicked. The door slowly opened. Han Wu Jin stood frozen. For the first time in his life, the most feared man in Seoul didn't know what to say. Because standing in front of him was not an enemy. It was the woman he lost. Amara. Her eyes were tired. Not from weakness. From carrying a secret alone for years. Wu Jin looked at her. Amara. His voice was quiet. I don't know if I deserve to stand here. She didn't answer. So he continued. I spent years thinking you left because you hated me. A painful smile appeared on his face. But now I realize. I was the reason you left. Amara looked away. You made your choice. The words hurt because they were true. Wu Jin lowered his head. I did. A long silence. Then he said the words nobody expected from him. I'm sorry. Not as a mafia boss. Not as a powerful man. Just as a husband who failed. Amara's eyes became emotional. You don't know what it was like. Wu Jin looked at her. Then tell me. I want to know everything. She finally told him. The trip. The pregnancy. The fear. The loneliness. How she returned but couldn't find the courage to tell him after everything that happened between them. How she gave Maya the responsibility of protecting their child while she tried to figure out her life. And how she watched him from a distance, believing he had already moved on. Wu Jin listened without interrupting. For once, he had no defense, no excuse, only regret. When she finished, his eyes were full of pain. All those years, he whispered, I missed everything. Amara looked at him. You can't get those years back. Wu Jin nodded. I know. A pause. But if you allow me, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she never feels unwanted. Behind Amara, Hannah appeared quietly. She looked at Wu Jin. The room became silent. Wu Jin looked at her. The little girl who changed everything. His daughter. He slowly knelt down. Not forcing. Not reaching. Just waiting. Hi. Hannah looked curious. Why are you always sad when you see me? The question broke his heart. Wu Jin smiled sadly. Because I missed something important. What? He looked at her. Knowing you. Hannah thought for a moment. Then slowly stepped closer. Amara watched silently. Because she saw something she never expected. Wu Jin wasn't trying to take her child. He was trying to earn her trust. Weeks passed. Not everything became perfect. Some wounds needed time. Some memories could not disappear. But slowly, Wu Jin became part of their lives. Not as a powerful chairman. Not as a feared mafia boss. As a father. The mansion that once felt cold became different. There were drawings on the walls. Small footsteps in the halls. Laughter that had never existed before. Madame Han watched from the doorway one afternoon and smiled. The house finally feels alive. Wu Jin looked toward Hannah, then at Amara. Yes. He smiled. Finally. Years ago, he thought power was everything. Money, fear, control. But in the end, the thing he wanted most was something he almost lost forever. A family. And Amara? She never forgot the pain. But she also never ignored the change. Because sometimes, the person who breaks your heart is also the person who learns how to heal it. The end, Blackheart. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment from where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next amazing story. Your support helps us create more heartwarming, dramatic, and unforgettable stories for you. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Red Heart.